And now it's my pleasure to co-moderate our leadership development panel. We have again, so many thought leaders, so many experts within our community. We're very, very fortunate and blessed. And so we wanted to create an opportunity for those of you who are joining us to learn from some incredible leaders within our community. We have 4 panelists today. We have Julie Ellis joining us. She's the co-founder of Mabel's Labels, and she has more than 15 years of experience in the financial services industry. She has so many accomplishments to her credit. She's responsible for driving the company's growth towards operational excellence and market expansion. And we last heard from Julie at our Wonder Woman conference during the first week of March, right before the COVID-19 shutdown occurred. And we're looking forward to hearing from you, Julie, about what has changed and hearing your insights. That was the last time many of us were able to gather in person. And so welcome back and thank you for joining us. We're excited to hear from you. We also have on our panel this morning, Carolyn Swora. And Carolyn is truly on a mission to shift our workplaces, to move from that transactional space to places where people can really grow and transform and thrive, while at the same time feeling energized, inspired, and motivated to do their best work. And she's designed purposeful workplace experiences to empower individuals and their teams to transform workplace culture by becoming change agents and driving culture from the bottom up. So thank you for being here, Carolyn. And we also have the award-winning Joseph Tassone joining us today. Joseph is an icon in downtown Burlington. He is a fashion designer with international reach. He focuses on designing, sourcing, and made in Canada couture. And his brand is really a celebration of Canadian quality, craftsmanship, and creativity. And he's also been a really shining example of adaptation and resilience. So thank you, Joseph, for joining us. And then our final panelist today is Lisa Marie Winning with Winning and Associates, the Investors Group Private Wealth Management. And Lisa holds no less than 5 designations within the financial industry. I'm not going to repeat them all, but she is certainly recognized for her very unique and extensive expertise in managing the complex requirements of her clients. So, and she's also been really focusing on leading her team during this time. So we're excited to hear from you as well. And so thank you for joining us today. We're going to ask each speaker to share some of their key leadership insights. We're going to give each of you about 5 minutes. And once you've all had a turn to share those insights, we're going to open up questions and answers to the broader group. So I encourage everyone to send your questions in throughout using the chat function, and we'll work through those at the end, or you can raise your hand. So the first in line to share with us is Julie Ellis. So again, Julie, a lot has happened since the Wonder Woman conference. Women in Leadership driven event earlier in this year, and we'd love to hear from you now.
Thanks, Carla. And who would have thought that a week later we would be locked down and staying at home for all this time? And so I think for me, that's been the biggest, sort of shift, I would say, that's happened this year is the resilience that we've had to kind of build as leaders to move from our pandemic sprint to our pandemic marathon, and sort of what this means to us as leaders. I have a lot of clients that I'm coaching right now, both entrepreneurs and executives, and some of the themes that I'm seeing, it seems to be crossing kind of the whole range of whether you're a one-person show or working at a large corporation. Communication is quite different in a virtual world, and leading a virtual team requires a lot more communication. How can the team connect? How do they connect for work? How do you connect with somebody socially in this kind of environment? And what does that look like? How do you onboard a new team member that you may have never met in person? So some of the things that talking about there, like within the team, obviously doing, social time, like having drinks at the end of the day or something along those lines. But even, if you have somebody on your team with talent for cooking, can they host a little cooking event and they share their favorite recipe and give you an ingredients list and everybody buys it and you'll cook a meal together? Getting creative about the ways that we can connect and things that we can do, and just remembering to get feedback about how you're communicating and adjust and prioritize, and it will always be more communication needed than you think. The second theme that I've been seeing quite a lot is a sort of overworking and burnout theme. When your office is in your bedroom, it's a little bit hard to find separation between work and life. And so, what are your limits and where do you draw the line? How are you creating barriers in your life? Seeing a lot of people working way, way more than they ever did before. And that lure of the computer sitting somewhere in your home, where it may be right in front of you or in your bedroom or somewhere that, you don't have that separation. So, watching that teams aren't starting to move towards burnout. Right now that we're in that marathon mode, burnout is real, and that's the state where people get physically and emotionally exhausted. And I think we're all at risk for emotional exhaustion in this, definitely. But that sense of reduced accomplishment and loss of personal identity that comes with burnout, I think, is something that's really important to watch for, both in our teams and in ourselves, because the work-life imbalance that's happening is significant and it contributes highly to burnout. And so, let's add a little side dish of chaos and isolation, and there's a pretty good recipe towards seeing burnout in your teams. So making sure that, number 3, exercise, sleep, and mindfulness. Are people getting outside? Are they getting exercise? Are they sleeping enough? Are you sleeping enough? What's your practice as a leader? How do you demonstrate as a leader how you are practicing these things and leading your team by example? Are you spending the time outside? Are you scheduling meetings with your team where you could do a walk and talk instead of sitting on Zoom all day long and needing the blue light glasses because you're spending so much time in front of the screen? At the end of the day, you're just sort of exhausted from that constant video. So looking for those opportunities to switch it up. And I have lots of coaching clients who will say, let's not do Zoom. I'm going to go outside and walk today. And can we coach like that? And so how to sort of shake it up and have different pieces so that you have transitions in the day. Taking your vacation. It's not very fun to think about going on vacation and staying home. So that's been one piece for me where I've really had to think hard about that. My husband and I both have jobs where we've always been kind of on 24/7. And so we combat that by going away somewhere where we can turn off our phones. And so, when your office is in your bedroom and you can't go anywhere, how are you going to take that downtime? And being intentional as a leader, because if you demonstrate that it's not valuable to take your vacation, your team is going to pick up the cues of that and they're going to follow you. So what can you do? Can you do day trips? Can you go to a cottage? Can you take on a small project at home? And can you delete your email from your phone? Are there some things where, you can just take that step back? Even if you're a vacation person who doesn't really stop checking your email, how can you distance yourself? How can you walk away from that work that's sitting 6 feet away from you at your house? And then the sprint versus marathon. So if thinking about this as the new normal, and if we can think about it as a new normal, as opposed to some temporary situation we find ourselves in, we can allow ourselves to be creative about how we think about the new normal. And we can create some excitement in trying some new things as teams and as individuals with our businesses, and look for those silver linings. Where are the silver linings in the circumstances that we find ourselves in? How can you empower your team to find those silver linings, to get excited, to try some new ideas? So I think, for me, those kind of key points of that communication is more important than ever. And probably over communication is really the right amount. watching that self-care over work. How are you restoring yourself, and how are you avoiding burnout for both yourself and your team? And bring the creativity to the table. You know, you need to be creative about all kinds of things these days, because nothing is normal or predictable. So be creative and find the silver linings.
Thanks, Julie. So great to hear from you. I'm now going to ask Carolyn Swara to share with us her insights. She's been doing and leading a Dare to Lead leadership development program for our chamber over the last number of weeks. And so, Carolyn, welcome, and we'd love to hear from you about why does courageous leadership matter now more than ever?
Thanks, Carla. Well, I'm going to share with you a tale of two businesses. And Carla, I don't even know if you know this story. Back in 2008, I started a business. My kids were 3 and 4. I had a full-time job at a large pharmaceutical company, and my husband was terminally ill. Was that courageous? Was that courageous for me to lead in and do that? I was really being driven by purpose and passion, and I wanted to leave a legacy for my husband, or with my husband. Many people at the time said I was being very courageous. Well, within a year, that business had failed. I lost close to $100,000. Certainly would be a different house that I would live in if I had that $100,000 back. I thought at the time that courage was a trait that I had acquired, and I had dealt with a lot of adversity in my life, and I was just, you know, one of those courageous people. Well, little did I know that shortly after my business fail, there was this researcher, not as well known then as she is now, named Brené Brown. And she had started out on a journey to uncover, specifically in leadership, what businesses needed. And so she asked transformational leaders around the world, what needs to change about the way people are leading to be successful in this fast-paced, complex world where innovation is required and creativity is required more and more. And for the first time in her 25 years of research, every single person, every single leader came back and said the same word. And you're going to guess what it is, because that was the title of my note. But it was courage. Every single leader across the world, across industries, across genders, across ethnicities, everyone said courage. But like me, 80% of those people thought courage was an inherited trait. Now, as we all know, Brené Brown's work has continued to influence us. Her work, Dare to Lead, her podcasts, has continued to come into the mainstream. And this research that she started asking that question then went on to show that courage is a learned skill set. There are 4 skill sets to courage, and that's the program right now that we're running in partnership with the chamber. We're teaching those 4 skill sets. So here's the thing, at the core of courage is something that scares the shit right out of us. And it's the word vulnerability. Even just hearing that word is like, whoa. If you're thinking, oh yeah, I love being vulnerable, I would maybe call into question your psychopathology. Vulnerability is not something that we naturally lean into. You cannot be courageous without it though. And so there are a whole lot of myths around this word vulnerability, and it comes with a lot of misunderstanding. What it is, though, vulnerability at its core is an emotion that we experience when we're feeling risk and uncertainty, when we cannot control the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is not disclosure. As a leader, getting up and saying, oh my gosh, COVID hit, I don't know what we're going to do. Help me, we're all going to do this together. That's not being vulnerable. Vulnerability is, as I said, embracing the fact that and showing up fully when you cannot control the outcome. And here's the other really interesting thing that this research showed, is vulnerability is not just those yucky, gross feelings like shame and fear. The most vulnerable emotion that we can experience, the research has shown, is guess what? Joy. Joy is the most vulnerable emotion we can experience. And if you think of the most vulnerable things that you've done in your life, starting a business, falling in love, having children, challenging your boss in a meeting, they're all vulnerable because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So why does this even matter in our business? You might be thinking, you know what, I can run my business just fine. I don't need to be vulnerable, Carolyn, like I'm fine, just it's good enough. Well, the research also shows that the key to being creative, to being innovative, and to solving these more and more complex problems that we have, and frankly, to making it through a pandemic, are all connected to our ability to be vulnerable. Specifically, our ability to feel joy, belonging, and love. Those are the things that will unpack vulnerability. And I could have used a lot of those things when I was starting up my business in 2008. And we often stop ourselves from being courageous and vulnerable because it's scary and it's easier to stay safe, again, especially when there's so much unpredictability. So let's go back to my business in 2008. The reason it failed, I wasn't being courageous. I was actually being very careless, I think, in the big picture. But it was directly related to my vulnerability or lack thereof. I was trying to figure stuff out on my own. I was not having tough conversations, and I wasn't addressing the fears and feelings of myself and the people that I'd partnered with. I was dodging all of it. And those are the two major things that happen to your business when you don't lean into vulnerability as a leader. Tough conversations don't happen, and fears and feelings take over and take up a ton of your time. And so that's why courageous leadership matters, because if and when, not if, we will make it through this pandemic, our businesses will make it through this pandemic, but you need to have tough conversations. You need to address the fears and feelings of yourself and the people that you work with, because if you don't, you're going to spend an inordinate amount of time addressing the fallout from that. So we need our businesses to have these tough conversations. We need to address these fears and feelings. I'm happy to say that my next entrepreneurship adventure in 2016 started off much better. It's still going. I've got my own business now, Pinnacle Culture. I embrace courage in a much different way. And now not only do I talk about vulnerability, I get to teach it and share it. And I had the privilege of being trained by Brene herself. And I firmly believe that a city like ours, a community like ours, that is so wonderful to begin with, can create even more wonderful things for the people that we serve in our community and for even the people outside when we can lean into this courage and vulnerability. So that's the tale of my two businesses.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Carolyn. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions for you when we open up the Q&A portion of the panel. That's also a really terrific segue into our next panelist, Joseph Tassone, who I know is well known to many of you, but you know, Joseph has been a shining example of adaptation and resiliency, and he has taken some incredible risks with COVID as he's adapted his business. So Joseph, we'd love to hear from you right now. If you would like to share and offer some insights to those of us on the line, that would be great. And then we're going to hear from Lisa Marie.
Well, first, sorry, I would like to thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to thank all these incredible speakers today for speaking. I mean, all of your stories are very inspiring, and I think it speaks to all of us in our own unique ways. Doing what I do and manufacturing garments and, you know, launching my line and, you know, dealing with luxury women's and men's outerwear apparel and producing in Canada is its own task in itself. And when you're training people over years and people are investing in you and they're investing in your idea of a brand that is made here, that is proudly Canadian, is a feat in itself. So when the pandemic hit and, you know, me going to the bank and like many other independent businesses, it was eligible for nothing. And I want to kind of go back to David's point, because I actually, like, I really enjoyed David and what he was saying was, you know, that word pivot, right? And then pivot to change. And then I think there's even another word that we could add on to there, and it's just survive. And It's not even like this was a choice. Like I woke up one day, I said, oh, okay, we're going to go from couture garments to face coverings. It was, we have to do this to keep the supply chain going and to keep independent businesses moving forward. So there is that risk. There is that factor of being vulnerable. But if you don't do it, nothing's going to happen. And at the end, you know, like when I worked in the corporate apparel industry for about 18 years, and I'm sure this applies to many other business owners, you break your back for all these other people. So why not take that risk and those risks that you're taking in the corporate world when you're working for somebody else and apply it to yourself? I mean, if you don't take that risk and you don't take that jump and that leap of faith within yourself, you don't know what can happen. You do it or you don't. But what you do know is if you do take that risk, you can at least have some kind of path that you're going to try and navigate. Right now, you know, being in downtown Burlington, it's an awesome feeling. I mean, the community is incredibly supportive of independent businesses, from the Chamber of Commerce to the BDBA, I mean, to the people. And it's because of all of you that we're able to survive all of this. And, you know, my business going from luxury outerwear apparel, showing at Fashion Week, you know, just recently I created the cashmere bathroom tissue dress, which is on CTV, The Social, everywhere. You know, you're creating beautiful things to remind people of the beauty in the world. But then now it's like opportunity and creating face coverings and creating the branded face coverings for Joe Brand Hospital. And then most recently, creating the branded face coverings for Hamilton Health Sciences Group. So, I mean, there's all these other opportunities that come. Will it make you a lot of money? I don't know. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're giving back to your community and you're navigating through this. And you're trying to like steer through everything while keeping everyone employed and the supply chain going. I mean, it's not easy. Like me being at the forefront of this pandemic, as I'm sure many of you are. When you go out in the street, if you open up your doors, you're putting yourself at risk by being in front of the virus. And you know, we live in a democracy and everybody has a right to their own opinion. But there is something out there that is making people sick and that is killing people. So when you go out there, you have to give it at 150%. And just like my garments, everything is in the details. So, you know, from the presentation to that promise, you know, I'm going to be going back to a couple of David's points because I thought they were just so excellent and so relatable to many of us, whether you were corporate, whether you're independent. And what I loved about it was that listening to him and many pillars of who I am and of my brand and of this community, it isn't all those details. It's that promise you make to the end consumers, the feeling that you leave them with. It's all of those details that build great brands. And that's what I would really want to share with everybody is whatever it is that you do, give it at 150%. And right now, being in this month of the pandemic, I got to tell you, it's just like March all over again, but everybody's got an attitude now. So, you know, it's and it's like, okay, you're trying to navigate all of the personalities, all of the attitude. Nobody wants to lose their business. People want to push forward and strive. And for me, what I can just share with everybody is whatever it is that you're doing, you're shifting online, you're in front of people. It's always, I would just say, ask yourself who you are and are you being you when you're talking to everybody? Because people will always buy and listen to you when you're authentic, when you're real. That is what will determine your success. And that's what I can share with everybody.
Thanks, Joseph. Thank you so much. You certainly deserve a round of applause. And I actually just want to ask you to expand on something because I think there's an important message here.
Yes.
Before we go to Lisa Marie. In the early days when you made that very conscious, thoughtful decision to shift from couture fashion to face coverings, there was a lot of criticism that was directed your way from the public who misunderstood what your motivations were, who actually challenged you for creating the first among the first non-medical grade face coverings and for advocating for their use before they became mandatory, and that was the widespread and prevailing view. And I remember having conversations with you during those difficult times. What was it that propelled you and powered you through that gave you that sense of, I'm going to do this because I believe in it, despite the criticism that was being unfairly directed your way?
So I gotta say, truly, many of our conversations with my family members really help support me, but also remembering the many people that are behind me. So from the workers to the shipper to the person that I buy the fabric, if I didn't stand up and fight all of this garbage, okay, because it truly is garbage, all of these people will be unemployed. So that's the responsibility behind me. It's like there are massive responsibilities. And you know what? It's all the little independent businesses like ourselves that build this economy. So if I cave in to everyone's opinion, okay, there'll be nothing. And for me, like right from the onset, you know, you get death threats, you get people putting notes on your door saying, stop doing what you're doing. You know, you're endangering the lives of people. Then you're getting messages online. Then you're getting this. And it's not even little trolls, you know what I mean, about sharing their opinion as to what their viewpoint is in the world. Like these are actual like threats. And they're still continuing to this day. So the thing is that, you know, being a fashion designer and, you know, the technical title, for me, it's, you know what, this is what we do. We listen, we change, we create change. And then the thing is that we have to adapt and then kind of understand what this new norm is. And you know what? My new norm that I deal with every single day is that everybody's got an opinion, and some of those opinions are really nasty. And what I just do is I can that garbage and then I put it inside a different room and I continue with my business, because at the end of the day, I got all these other people that are behind me that depend on this. And then not only that, it's like we're doing the work for the hospitals too. So, you know, we're raising money for our local hospitals, for our local community. And will I let somebody's opinion affect that? No, absolutely not. And that's what I would definitely say for every single business owner is that, or you're working for somebody or anything like that, go with your gut. And you know what? Everybody will have an opinion. And you know what? It's up to you as to how you want to absorb that.
Thanks, Joseph. So Lisa Marie, yeah, and I can see the you know, the applause happening for you, Joseph. Lisa Marie, we'd love to hear from you. You have really focused on your team through the pandemic. You have really made that an area of leadership, and I'm wondering if you could share with us a few thoughts on that and how that has really sustained your organization through all of this.
Thanks, Carla. What a tough act to follow, Joseph. You know, we know each other well, and I've got goosebumps. And so I just want to say, who wouldn't love these amazing, fashionable, they're so soft. So I had to do a little plug for Joseph because he just does so much for our community, and a tough act to follow. But you know, I did want to take some time, and thank you so much for inviting me to chat about the importance of putting your team first. You know, I've always had this philosophy, but I think it's become even more important now, being in the midst of this global pandemic. You know, I think as business owners, we spend a lot of time talking about putting our clients first. And that is important, but I'm going to challenge that thought process today, because I think that there is something that ultimately will have your clients end up at the top of the model if you put your team first. You know, as small business owners, we wear a lot of hats, and you know, we talk. Everyone's had a very similar theme today. We've kind of started individually, and we've gradually been able to build out staff and build out office space and kind of build out our brands. But you know, through all of that, as we were working those late nights and weekends and just like the countless hours, I think we all at one point or another would have asked ourselves, wouldn't it be great if we could replicate ourselves? The magnitude of having more than just one of me trying to build a business 25 years ago. And so I've really tried to internalize that. And that's really where my thought process behind putting my team first has come from. Because I'm not saying that you can replicate your own individual skill set, but I do think that by putting your team first, you can replicate or duplicate the care factor. and the attention to detail, the things that we're not often able to ask staff for, or we can't really expect that because they're not the leader. It's not there wasn't their heart and soul that went into the creation of the business. But I think by putting them first, I think that ultimately what happens is you help to develop individuals who also have a sheer passion for business growth and for seeing your brand grow and seeing the recognition that you get in the community. And it truly is there's a multiplier effect, because if you've got a staff of 10 or a staff of 100, if you have focused on putting those individuals first, if you give them the same attention that you give your top clients, because they are your top clients, they are on the front lines with your top clients. If you put that attention and focus into taking care of them, you will have either, if it's 10 employees or 100 employees, you will have that many people out there in the community in front of your clients, being you, expressing that same care factor and replicating that belief system. And that's how your brand grows. That's why people talk about you. And so I think, there's been a lot of comments. Julie talked about, be creative about how we connect. And through the pandemic, I've had to rejig how I like to put my team first, because it's not the same as all showing up in the office every day and being able to face-to-face take care of people. And so I started out at the beginning of this. I think it's changed a little bit now because we've built some new habits, but I started at the beginning of this thinking, what are the obstacles? Where do we have to pivot? Where do I have to pivot to be able to make sure that I'm still taking care of people? And for us at the beginning of the pandemic, working inside the financial markets, the first month of the pandemic, we saw a pretty major swing in the global stock market. And so for us, that changes all of the normal processes that we have within our business. They go out the window. It means that we're on the phone reaching out to every single client proactively before they have a moment to even worry about the impact to them. And so that means that everybody is on full tilt, and it's go time for us. And so I realized after the first 3 weeks that we were going to suffer from fatigue. We've been through these periods before, but it's different now. It's, there isn't the ability to leave your house. We were in full quarantine at that time. There's Zoom fatigue, and there's just a lot of barriers to be able to connect with our team. We in periods of volatility before, we would, at the end of the day, all go out for drinks or for dinner, or we, take a break and have some lunch together. We just kind of have the ability to kind of break down what was happening in the world and just, give ourselves a break together. And that was gone. And so I started with wellness. So I knew, and I'm somebody who focuses quite a bit on wellness. I think that there's a big connection between physical wellness and fiscal wellness. And I realized that I was, I wasn't focusing on that. And so I kind of took a step back. And one of the things the practices that we had always had with my firm is that we have flexible work hours. It doesn't matter what position you are, what level you're at. I know that lives are everyone's life looks different. You've either got young children or older children, or you're empty nester, or you're single. And so the pulls on your time are different. And so we've always had a very flexible arrangement where you show up when it works for you and you leave when it works for you. And if you have to jump out in the middle of the day, you don't need to ask for permission. Just, I know that on this team, there is mutual trust. And so the people that we've got on our team, we've had for many, many years. And I feel as though that takes a lot of the stress off of them personally. And so I thought, how can I get that? Because right now as Julie said, we're tied to our computers. We're not able to go anywhere. And so I actually mandated mornings. I said, everybody, I don't want anyone signing on until at least 10 o'clock, but I want you to get outside, go for a walk, breathe in the fresh air, just sit and enjoy the sunshine. We had such a beautiful summer. And so I started by mandating some natural vitamin C. And I said, please, this will make us better through the rest of the day if we start our day out putting ourselves first. And then I thought, okay, we've got to kind of take this now. How can I take this to the next level? And I'm a big believer when it comes to our clients, we tailor our approach with every single client because everyone's different, everyone's desires and interests are different. And so we don't just ever apply the same philosophy to any two clients. And so I've taken that approach with my team. And I kind of broke down what each person was interested in through this. And we had individual conversations. And so for one gentleman, I set him up with a private personal trainer. And I said, break your day up. So do it at 12:30 or 1 o'clock. That's when your kids are at home having lunch. And so, maybe you can have a bite to eat with them and then you can go and you can have this time and take your time afterwards and just, give yourself a few breaks in the day. With another woman on my team, she, that wasn't of interest to her at the time, but if, a month or so later, she said, I'd really like to try Pilates. So I got her set up with, in that kind of, she wasn't the personal training type. She didn't really want to kind of be pushed like that super hard, but she loved the thought of being a part of like a yoga and Pilates type of wellness program. Meals. I realized everyone was trapped at home. And just with our clients, we did a lot of meal deliveries, or we would send them gift cards. But I try to support as many local businesses. I think Joseph said we have a responsibility, and so the responsibility for me goes. It's my team, it's my clients, my family, but my community. Because if we're not propping each other up, then it's harder for all of us to, Kenna talked about how amazing Burlington is, and it's like that because we've got so many business owners helping each other out and propping each other up. And so, just having meals delivered kind of once or twice a week to my team while we were doing that for our clients, just to give them a break. And as things started to open up, we did more drops for clients. And again, trying to support business owners. We did charcuterie boxes and we did hand soap and cleaning supplies from Bear Home. And just, but I made sure that as we were taking care of our clients, because we weren't seeing them face to face, and I don't know that maybe over time, the connection this way will get there. But at the beginning of this, Zoom was still, or kind of the computer to computer, it lacked feeling. I don't know that anybody really was trained or knew how to express emotion this way. And so we made sure as we were doing these drops that our team was on those lists just like our clients were. Flowers for spouses, just things on a very regular basis to remind them how important they were to this, because this has taught all of us how we have to be able to pivot. We have to be able to pivot quickly. We have to have a game plan in mind for the unexpected. And so I need a team that feels refreshed, that feels as though, I'm trying to think of who made, it might have been Julie again, but she talked about emotional burnout. And so our clients are facing emotional burnout. They have been quarantined, their businesses are impacted, their jobs are impacted. They may be home with young children trying to work. And so if they're facing emotional burnout and my team was facing emotional burnout, then there's not a lot of energy there. And so I feel as though by taking care of my team first, they then were able to take care of our clients with a lot more energy and a lot more empathy, and kind of create an environment that maybe when they get off the phone with us or when they get off one of these calls, they feel as though they can take some of that positive energy away. And finally, I think that, one of the most important things about putting your team first is first you have to make sure you have the right team. And so you treat them very well, but you have to empower them to be able to make decisions. They're an extension of you. And so if you truly want them to be out in the community, being part of building your brand, creating those relationships with your very best clients, you have to empower them. They have to feel as though you trust them to make a call, move forward with it. And at the end of the day, I'm going to support them no matter what, whether it's, client says, can you sponsor this event that is coming up? And they say, absolutely. It doesn't matter what it is, you have to stand behind them. And I think that pulling all of this together, what I've realized is that even though we've been challenged in so many ways through the pandemic, I feel as though our team has gotten a lot closer, and I feel as though our skill sets have really developed and strengthened because we've learned how to communicate and support other people on a whole other level.
Thanks, Lisa. You're such a caring and empathetic leader, and it's so wonderful to hear what you've been doing in such a practical way to support your team, but also to create that culture where people know that they matter to you, and that is incredibly powerful. So now that everyone has had an opportunity to share some highlights and some insights, and I know I've done a lot of talking today, I'm going to open this up to everyone on the line. If you have a question, just raise your hand or let us know via chat. We've got 4 incredible panelists here that are available to you. So we'd love to hear from you. Or if the panelists want to ask one another a question, now's your opportunity as well. So you may want to tee off of something that someone has just said, or follow up and probe a little bit. So love to hear from you. Gail.
Hi. I just want to say that this has really been brilliant. The speakers have all had different, opinions, different great learnings for all of us. And the one thing that I think resonates amongst all of you, and certainly amongst the rest of us, is the passion. When you're speaking, Joseph, Julie, all of you, like when you're speaking, you can see the passion behind everything that you say. And I think that that goes a long way when we're dealing with anybody, whether it's our teams, whether it's our clients, whoever, because if we really truly have that passion about what we're doing, it resonates. So I just wanted to say that because I feel very passionate about what I do, and I think that brings me a long way with people that I deal with. So.
That's a really great observation, Gail. Thanks for sharing that. Would anyone else on the line like to chime in or ask a question?
Bridget has a question.
Okay, terrific. Thanks.
Hi, not really a question and more of a comment. It really, so much is resonating, and I just piggyback on what Gail said. It's the passion I think that we all have for our businesses, and there's so much purpose there. And the way that you've all talked about the team, it's so important, and it's everything. And I really was wanted to underscore something that Joseph said about, there's pivoting, there's survival, and there's thriving and all that. But really, I think a lot of us are really, like, to be honest and vulnerable, we are trying to survive right now. And so when Joseph said about, surviving and doing things and the responsibility of the people and keeping people employed, that has weighed so heavy on me personally. And so I don't know, Joseph, if you want to say anything more about that, but I certainly, it really hit me quite deeply, because that's really a big motivator for us right now.
Well, I want to commend you for navigating through this and being passionate about your business and about the people that you work with. It's very clear, and even like the wings behind you. When you're building a business, often great businesses, in my opinion, are built with a great team. And going, back to Lisa, and team is like a family. So the thing is that you don't abandon your team, you figure it out, and it's hell. Like it's not fun. Like none of this is fun.
Words, it is.
Yeah.
And there's some bad apples sometimes, right?
Yeah, and it's those bad apples that you got to can, because we're always going to have bad apples, pandemic or no pandemic. There's always that one, and they always got that opinion. But the thing is that if you let that bad apple really affect your judgment and how you're going to run your business, it affects all those other people.
Oh.
So yeah, so I really want to tell you, what you're going through, everybody's pretty much going through.
But isn't it amazing that we have this incredible business community in Burlington? I've never experienced anything like it. There's something in the water.
Bridget, I'm so glad you made that comment, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's we have been saying it. We are stronger together. We're in this together.
You've been here for us from the very beginning, Carla. You and I had these, like, you know, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening chats. You were generous, so generous when we were just like, blah, and, you know, kind of, you know, get your footing back again. But thank you so much for your leadership, Carla, through all the emails that we get from the Burlington Chamber. It's like, okay, they're here for us. Okay, there were all these announcements. Okay, they've summed it up for us. Thank you.
We have your back.
I know you do. And I think that's why we're all here today, right?
And that's why I actually, picking up on your question, I wanted to ask Julie, because there's like this stress level, right? The pressure, the weight that so many on the line have been carrying for months and months, this sustained level of pressure. I mean, you are an executive coach to, an extraordinarily array of individuals. I mean, what is your advice? Because I mean, coming together and knowing that we're part of something bigger is really sustaining. And I know we've all drawn a lot of strength from one another during these difficult times, but given your area of expertise, I mean, how do people continue to power through and show up and be present and provide that leadership and inspiration and courage and vision and all those things that, David talked about earlier?
I think it's about, like, as a leader, everybody has their own style. And so considering what you need to layer into your style in a time like this, because like I'm a person who leads by wandering around and chit-chatting with my team. And so like today, that's not so much a possibility, right? So it's sending my clients a little, hey, how are you doing? Like, we're kind of 2 weeks out from our last session and we're not talking till next week. Like, are you hanging in there okay? Because I started finding that I would say to people, if something comes up, just ping me and we'll have like a 10-minute quick conversation. But nobody was doing that. So now, like, I needed to adjust. And so now I give them the quick, hey, how's it going? Is anything coming up? Like, are you good till the next session? Is there anything I can help you with? And so, it was sort of me adjusting how I'm doing that interaction. And so it's being conscious of things like that. And I think, the weight of what is inside your control and what is outside your control. Like I ran into somebody walking my dog, and our kids are the same age, and she was worried about whether her son would successfully be able to finish high school on time or not. And I said, well, if it takes another year, it takes another year. Like right now, we're doing school the way we're doing school, and I can't control when things will be normal in that realm. So, he's 16 years old, he'll be okay. But it's like those pieces of what's up to me, and what do I have to let go of in this time, because I can't hold on to all of it. And so how does that help you find a little bit more of a balance and trying to take a positive outlook on it, right? Like, rather than being like, oh, he's never going to graduate high school on time, being like, what opportunities can come out of taking an extra year in high school? He's my baby. I get to have him for an extra year at home. That's awesome. So, right. So, what things, how can you position things in your mind to take a different viewpoint? How do you shift your view to find that silver lining?
No, thank you. That's great insight. Terrific. Marianne from BDC would like to make a few remarks. And then we do have a question from Karoom. So we'll hear from Marianne first, and then Karoom, please.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, and it's a little bit of a question as well, but great speakers and great event. So one of the things that's come out of this pandemic is more of a buy local theme, and I'm really encouraged by that. And I'm seeing a bit of a synergy amongst the business community there. Talk to me, and I guess I'll zero in with Joseph. Supplier diversity and moving from maybe an offshore supplier to a local supplier. How difficult, or anybody that's on the line, how difficult has that been to manage? And I guess, what are your thoughts on diversifying your supply chain now and remaining a little bit more local?
So my brand, we produce and manufacture in downtown Burlington, Hamilton, and Niagara Falls, and all of our materials are locally sourced. I worked with offshore manufacturing when I was in the corporate apparel industry for about 18 years, and it's something that I do not, it's not who I am. So for me, diversifying kind of my brand and everything, the team has had to grow, because the thing is that we're still producing luxury women's and men's outerwear apparel. It's just in a very, very different way, because we're having to all adapt to this new way of retail, because the entire landscape of retail is completely different. So what I'm interested to kind of see is how retailers, whatever your business is how we're all going to present this new way of selling. So not only is it online, like online is one thing, but people like to touch, people like tactile, people like these things. So it's, you know, for me, it's how is this presentation going to be across all retailers, whatever your business is? And then by doing so, how does it kind of encourage more employment? Like in my case, like now we have a team that's dedicated to face coverings, but then we have another team that specializes within my wovens, and then as well within, you know, my knit and then outerwear apparel. So it's actually been able to employ more people, but now it's kind of ensuring that that continues. And how does it continue? And the one thing I do want to say is the one thing that I'm very, very fortunate about. Health is wealth. Okay, if you're healthy, you can apply yourself to anything. I've had many situations where I've had clients like, well, you know, some clients are like, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that anymore. Well, I had one client whose mother passed away from COVID, and then his daughter got sick because she was taking care of the mom. So, you know, health is wealth, and we can achieve great things and we can do amazing things, but we have to remember what's actually happening, you know, and it's real and it's very close. Although you can't see it, it's there. So that was my comment.
Thanks, Joseph. David Kincaid has to leave us at 11. So we've got 3 minutes before he has to dial off. David, is there anything you'd like to share before we say our goodbye to you? Again, we're so grateful to you for being with us this morning.
Oh, well, no, thank you. And thank you to everybody. But I've just so enjoyed listening to these speakers. I think I'm going to move to Burlington.
The #1 city in Canada, just so you know.
And I'm talking about moving, not just my business.
Oh yeah, no, we'll find you a great place.
but just the one, the comments that everybody has made are so bang on. But the one that I wanted to just put a circle around, Joe talked about it, Lisa Marie talked about it, and that is it starts at home. It starts with you, and it starts with your employees. You know, you always think about your business as being this commercial effort that's out there selling, pumping away, doing, but especially with small business, I think the impact of making sure that, as Joe just said, that family is first and foremost healthy and looked after. And I know it sounds a little sugar-coated, but we actually refer to ourselves at level 5. There's only 40 of us, but as family. And what Lisa Marie said is so true, that you have to trust them, you've got to believe in them, you've got to kind of play a bit of a parental role in making sure they are safe and happy from a mental health as well as a physical health standpoint. And it go back to my, you know, value promise consistently kept, especially in small business. The consistently kept part of it is all about having loyal, energized, aligned, focused, productive employees, family. And even before you worry about what you're doing with your next ad campaign, if you don't have those basics, again, you're going to go out and promote something that your team, your family is just not set up to deliver on. So you know, a lot of people say, well, it starts with the promise or it starts with the consistently kept. I'm a big believer of what Lisa Marie said. It does start with our employees, it starts with our family, and keeping them safe and happy and healthy is critical. So I just wanted to underline that. I thought it was a great point. And unfortunately, I do have to jump off. I've got to run down to that terrible, ugly downtown Toronto place for some kind of a thing. So it was a wonderful meeting all of you. I look forward to having a chance to follow up with many of you, and have a great day. And again, Carla, thank you so much for the invitation.
Thanks, David. Great to see you as always and to spend time with you. We'll talk to you really soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I think before we wrap this panel up, and it's been such an excellent discussion, and we are going to go into like a brief breakout room to give people a chance to chat more. We're going to break our thought leaders who've been joining us up into the breakout rooms. Karim, you had a question you wanted to pose?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Very quickly, because I know we are running out of time. I'm attending this Burlington Chamber event for the first time. I was downtown, just moved to GTA West, and now looking after GTA West small and growing team at BDC.
Welcome.
Very, very interesting. I'm really happy the sessions and everything, and the stories and the passions everyone is sharing is really, really good. So just a quick question I want to ask from everyone. We see a lot of businesses opening, especially in the small and growing side, which I look after. They come up and they mostly are opening businesses just to see, when they see some other businesses which are doing good, they come up with the idea that, you know what, I want to copy this and I want to start a similar business. My question is, how important is to have a clear vision when you are starting a business? Is it just like the other guy is doing good and I'm going to copy him? Or is you have to have a clear mindset, you know, what I really want to achieve?
Julie, did you want to weigh in on that, or?
I think it's really important to have a clear vision. When we started Mabel's Labels, we had a really clear vision that we were solving a problem for parents, and that was the lost and found. And so if you labeled your children's items, then they would not go into the lost and found. So you would not only be sort of that mom that had it all together and, you know, was on top of things, but you would also be, you know, saving yourself money. You would be saving the school the effort of dealing with the lost and found and all of those kinds of things. So that was kind of the promise that we started to build the business on. And for us, it really did, dictate what the trajectory was of all the decisions that we made.
Great.
Yeah, I'll add in there too. A vision is so important, and what I see happen with small and large businesses is when you let someone else's vision dictate where you think it needs to go. When you sort of are doing something because other people are doing it or because you think it's the right thing. And that comes back to the passion, right? That somebody commented on, that we all, you know, you're feeling this passion. It's because we're connected to this to the vision that we have for our company, and it's coming from a very authentic place. And if I bring that back to courage and vulnerability, it's when we put down the armor, when we put down all this fear and what we think we should be doing, and come from a place that is really what we believe in, and we can bring that gift into the world. So yes to vision, and yes to authentic vision.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I just want to thank all of our panelists. What a fascinating group of individuals with so much wisdom to share.